man. So in the midst of looking at the news this morning on my news app and seeing more conversations about racial tension in America and the coronavirus and what states are doing things right and what states are doing things wrong, I just thought it would be a cool thing to bring you some good news in your inbox. So I hope this is something that brings you joy. It's a trip I took 2 weeks ago with a group of guys up to Timberwolf Lake. If you're familiar with Young Life, you know that the camp at Timberwolf Lake is built for hundreds and hundreds of teenagers. And this year we're just not able to use it that way. So it's this huge, expansive camp that is just primed for kids to hear about Jesus. Cell phones are taken away, technology is removed, and we just see every summer how kids either meet Jesus for the first time or they're able to go deeper in their faith because of that time at Timberwolf. It truly is holy ground. Every time I enter that camp, I just feel like there's just something special about it. There's been so many stories that can be shared at that space. So this is just one more of those stories. So what they're doing now is they're doing individual camping with 10 people or less. So the week we were up there, they had about 54 campers, and I took a group of guys and we ended up doing work crew. So we worked in the kitchen and the dining hall and any type of maintenance stuff that they needed done around the camp we got to help with as well. So I got to take a group of guys from Lakeshore High School. A lot of these guys I've been journeying with over the summer. It's those senior boys that I've told you about before, that they're in that transition period between high school and college, and then a couple others were able to join us as well. So I just want to share a couple stories from that week we were there. We were there a Sunday through a Thursday. It went so fast. We served breakfast, lunch, and dinner. The first image that you'll see in this video here is the Buffet Boys. They clung to that title so quick. So this was a group of guys that were trusted to serve every meal to every camper. So the campers would come through, and camp did a really good job making sure that not everyone was touching the utensils. So you started at one end, and just like at Chipotle or Subway, you told the server what you would like and they scooped it for you. So that image is the Buffet Boys. They were super thrilled to be able to do that. And just seeing the camaraderie with them and the joy they took knowing that they were trusted, to do this above and beyond job. And speaking about above and beyond jobs, the next picture here is of Joey and Sam. Sam, I think, towards the end of the week, got tired of hearing me call his name. This was a trash run that they were doing. So there's several trashes in the kitchen and in the dining room that need to be obviously disposed of every so often. And the dumpster that they get dumped into is a special place on earth. There's a smell that I think sticks in your mask for quite some time. I did a couple runs with them as well. So the reason I called on Sam and Joey is because I knew if I called their name, I could trust it, that I would ask that it be done, and it would be. Those two together, you give them a task and they're all over it. So I saw them get called by the kitchen staff so many times throughout the week, where they knew that these two, especially if you put them together because they're such close friends, you put these two on a mission together and they're going to get the job done. So that was really cool to see. The next image here is Mikey. So Mikey got to prepare some potatoes. And I think that Mikey helps a little bit at home with meal prep, if I understand correctly, but he was thrilled to have a job that was his own. He knew what the job was. It was very clear what he needed to do, and he just went to task. He was by far one of the hardest workers throughout that entire week. Never hear him complain. All the guys did great with that, but I never heard one complaint come out of his mouth. A couple of loud gasps when he was tired, but all in all, he just did such a phenomenal job. The next one here is Ollie and Jake. They were prepping for a salad, and seeing Jake with that big knife was terrifying. But then they told me that he had a cut glove on, and he was thrilled to let me know that even if he did chop his thumb, it wouldn't come off. So just more fun in the kitchen. Those two were a joy together, making cutting lettuce a fun job. Like how can you do that unless you're two teenage boys who just love being together. They are really a treat. The next one here is the whole line of food prep. So you see Joey right in the front there in the black, and then in the middle was a girl from the east side of the state. So that was a pleasant surprise. We showed up on camp the night before our responsibility started, and there was 3 girls from the east side over by Ann Arbor who we found out they were going to be working with us as well. So we got to meet them. We got to know their stories a little bit, had some great devotional time with them. And that's just one of those special things about camp, is that you go with a group and then you get to meet other people who are kind of in the same boat as you. So, and then next down the line is Declan in the white shirt. Declan did phenomenal. Declan broke his leg a couple years ago, so there was a couple times where his ankle started bothering him, but he pushed through. That kid is so persistent. He has such a high tolerance for pain, and he just loves being in anything that's happening. And Declan, if you were at the Taste of Young Life last year, we highlighted Declan and his mom in the banquet. And it just reminds me every time we're out at these events together that Declan would have never been in this friend group with Jake and Ollie and Sam and Joey, not because the other guys were mean or rude or picked on Declan, but just they didn't run in the same circles. So Young Life is a space that brings all these kids together. And Declan has had experiences that he never would have had if it wasn't for Young Life. And this is one of those. Like, Declan was so excited to come work in the kitchen. And then if you look to behind Declan, I guess to his right, is Dylan Clem. And Dill's bringing out a bunch of boxes. And he was like having another leader there. Dylan is so mature. He's great in leadership. So when they said we need somebody to kind of lead the way, whether that was the buffet boys or something that needed to be done, he was the first one to jump to it and say, let's get this done. So the last 2 videos, or the last 2 photos rather, that I want to share with you is, one is a campfire, just a picture of a campfire. This was one of the coolest things I've ever seen at Timberwolf Lake. I don't know if they do this on a normal camping season when there's 600 kids on camp. If they don't, they should. But every night, right around dusk, they went along the beachfront and they just lit fires in every single fire pit. And as I was watching them dump off firewood, I was walking around the lake with Declan and Mikey. I asked the staff, I said, is there any way that we could get a fire over by where the work crew's staying? And they said, absolutely. So they dropped us off a bunch of logs and lit the fire for us. And there's just something about dropping your technology and being around a fire together. The depth of conversations that happen. Jake Trivedi laying on his back in the grass and looking at the stars, and the conversations that would come just from being around a fire and being in nature together. We got tore up by mosquitoes. I think they call off on up in northern Michigan, because it seemed like the more we put on, it didn't work. But it was just amazing to sit around and just to hear the depth of conversations that would start from those moments. And then the last picture is a picture of our Devo time. So when you look at this picture, you'll see that the structure behind us, that was where we stayed, that was our cabins. It's called the Boom Scooter. And we actually found out that a boom scooter was a boat that they would use back in the day of like timber. So the whole camp is set up as like a timbering community as kind of a theme. So it kind of takes you back in time, if you will. But so we stayed at the Boom Scooter, and we would do devotionals every night at that picnic table, and it was incredible. We talked about the prodigal son. All 3 nights, that was the topic. The first night, we really focused on the younger brother and the lies that he believed about his dad, that his dad was only worth what his dad could give him. And he also believed the fact that his dad would be so harsh that when he came home, he would be punished, that he would be seen as a slave. And he had the image of his father messed up. And then the second night we looked at the older brother, which was fun with this group of guys, because we had a couple older brothers, maybe not in the line of their family, but the way they think about the world, the judgmental way that the older brother looked at his younger brother, and how he withheld himself from joy and from the party. If you remember in Luke 15, he withheld himself from the party because he was so angry. His anger kept him away from the joy that his father had offered to him. And he also had a bad perspective of his dad. He saw him as a work master, that the only thing he wanted him for was to work for his business, if you will. And if you remember in the story, the dad said, everything I've had it's always been yours. you've never had to ask for a goat. If you wanted it, you could have it. So the third night, we kind of summed it up with that both boys had the wrong view of their dad. And how is it that we look at our Heavenly Father? So just a quick update for you that ministry is still happening. COVID is weird. Life is different. Masks are itchy. Hand sanitizer smells disgusting. But we're figuring this thing out, and it's been a real joy. And the only reason I get to do this is because you do what you do. You're so generous to me and to Young Life, and I can't thank you enough. So until next time, stay safe. We'll talk to you soon.